Tulsa King Season 3 Episode 7 kicks off with a heavy atmosphere. The weight of the past episode's chaos hanging like a dark cloud over everyone. Dwight's world, once brimming with hopes of a legitimate empire, is now spiraling into disaster. The shutdown of Montague Distillers is more than just a business blow. It's a full-scale message from the law. A warning that Dwight's days of playing both sides are numbered. The inspector's death has left blood on their hands. And now every move Dwight makes is under intense scrutiny. What was meant to be a clean slate for his criminal empire has quickly turned into a nightmare. And the pressure is mounting from all sides. Inside the crew, things are about to implode. Bigfoot, forever the loyal enforcer, is shaken to his core, blaming himself for the death of the ABLE inspector. His guilt is eating away at him, but Mitch and Cleo aren't any better. They argue relentlessly about whether they should have buried the body instead of reporting it, as an accident, further straining the already tense dynamic. Dwight, in his usual cold and calculated fashion, shuts down their bickering. He knows burying the body would have sealed their fate, making them targets for murder charges. But with the accident now on record, it's only a matter of time before law enforcement digs deeper into their operation. The question hanging in the air is simple yet deadly: who's pulling the strings? From behind the scenes, feeding this fire and pushing Dwight closer to the edge. As if things weren't bad enough, Tyson brings even more devastating news. One of their trusted runners has just been arrested, caught with a trunk full of bourbon. But this isn't just another routine bust. The Ale agents are cracking down hard on every distributor connected to Montague, and their high-end bourbon is now evidence in a federal case. Dwight realizes the noose is tightening around him. Not only is his business in jeopardy, but his entire empire is being targeted by those who want to see him fail. The law is closing in, and his enemies are out for more than just the bourbon. They're taking aim at Dwight's every legal option, leaving him boxed in from every side. In the midst of this, another storm is quietly brewing behind Dwight's back. Vince, the one man who's always been playing both sides, makes his move. He's been walking a razor-thin line for weeks, but in this episode, he crosses it. In a quiet, backroom meeting, Vince sells out the crew. He hands over the location of a hidden stash of barrels to an anonymous source. Someone tied directly to Quiet Ray. It's the ultimate betrayal, and it's a game-changer. With Dwight's business already crippled, law enforcement closing in, and a traitor in his inner circle, Dwight faces an undeniable truth. The dream of going legit isn't just over, it may have been a mistake from the start. In the aftermath of this betrayal, Dwight is left with no other option but to make a desperate call to someone he's been avoiding for months, Quiet Ray. The silence between them is deafening. And as soon as Dwight hears Ray's voice, he knows this won't end well. Ray doesn't waste time with pleasantries. "Are you ready to play by my rules now?" he asks. In that chilling moment, Dwight is forced to reckon with the reality that he's no longer in control. The businessman he's tried to become is dead. What's left is the cold, ruthless gangster he was in the beginning, the man who will do whatever it takes to survive. The stakes couldn't be higher. Dwight's world is collapsing, and every choice he makes feels like it could be his last. What was once a dream of turning a criminal legacy into a legitimate empire is now a battle for survival. His enemies are closing in from all sides, and the only thing he can do is fight back. But with a traitor in the crew, law enforcement on his tail, and the shadow of Quiet Ray looming over him, Dwight's empire may have already crumbled beyond repair. As the episode progresses, Dwight's internal struggle intensifies. His desire for redemption is at odds with his criminal instincts. Will he be able to pick up the pieces and rebuild his empire, or has the game changed forever? One thing is certain: no matter what happens, Dwight is in for the fight of his life. Dwight's desperation deepens as the fallout from the shutdown continues to unravel, and his empire, once a symbol of power, is now a house of cards, teetering on the brink of collapse. The crew is fractured, their loyalties tested, and Dwight is faced with the stark realization that some bridges can never be repaired. His calculated moves are being outplayed at every turn, and the internal turmoil is reaching a boiling point. With the shutdown of Montague Distillers, the feds are circling closer, and Dwight knows it's only a matter of time before they strike. The bourbon industry, once his ticket to legitimacy, has now become his biggest liability. The weight of the situation is suffocating, but Dwight refuses to show weakness. He's always been a man of action, a man who thrives under pressure. But this time, the pressure is different. The walls are closing in, and even his trusted crew is beginning to crack under the strain. Bigfoot's guilt over the inspector's death is eating him alive, and it's only a matter of time before that guilt drives him to make a mistake. Mitch and Cleo are still arguing about what should have been done with the body, and Dwight knows he has to take control before it all spirals further out of hand. Dwight gathers the crew for a tense meeting, his sharp eyes scanning each face in the room. He knows that trust is fragile and right now, it's hanging by a thread. He lays it out coldly, they need to pull together if they have any hope of surviving this. There's no room for error. Mitch and Cleo need to stop bickering. Bigfoot needs to snap out of his guilt. And Dwight needs their loyalty now more than ever. But as he speaks, Dwight can feel the shift. The crew is no longer the tight-knit unit it once was. Doubt has set in and the cracks are beginning to show. Vince's betrayal is still fresh, and it's clear that Dwight is losing control. Meanwhile, the feds aren't wasting any time. Tyson's report confirms that the AL agents are on a full-scale offensive, cracking down on every distributor linked to Montague. The bourbon, once a symbol of power and wealth, is now the key piece of evidence in a federal case. Dwight's worst fear is coming true. His empire, built on a foundation of criminal activity, is collapsing under the weight of its own success. The more they try to cover their tracks, the deeper they sink into the mud. The law is no longer a distant threat. It's at their doorstep, and there's no escaping it. As Dwight watches his crew fall apart, the pressure of his situation grows heavier. He's running out of options, and every move feels like a gamble. He knows the stakes are higher than ever before. If he doesn't make a bold play soon, it could all be over. The dream of going legit is slipping through his fingers, and with Quiet Ray now in the picture, Dwight is faced with the uncomfortable truth that he may have no choice but to return to his roots. The businessman he once aspired to be is fading, and in his place, the ruthless gangster he used to be is beginning to resurface. But Dwight is no fool. He knows that he can't trust anyone no matter how loyal they've been in the past. He's been burned too many times. And Vince's betrayal is a painful reminder of just how dangerous this world can be. The game has changed, and Dwight knows he needs to adapt or risk being left in the dust. Quiet Ray's offer is tempting, but Dwight isn't the type to bow to anyone. He may need Ray's help, but he's not ready to play by anyone's rules but his own. In the middle of this turmoil, a new threat emerges. Jeremiah Dunmar, once a distant rival, is now a serious problem. After Dwight's crew took down one of his distilleries, Dunmar has been playing his cards carefully. But as Dwight soon learns, Dunmar isn't just a businessman, he's a master manipulator. When Mitch and Cleo launch an attack on Dunmar's distillery, they think they're sending a message. But what they don't realize is that they've just given Dunmar the perfect excuse to strike back. Dunmar, ever the strategist, leaks surveillance footage to the authorities, making it look like Mitch and Cleo were the ones who initiated the violence. Within hours, arrest warrants are issued and Cleo vanishes. Mitch goes underground and Dwight is once again left to clean up the mess. Dwight is caught in a game of chess, but every move he makes seems to push him closer to checkmate. He can't trust his crew, the feds are closing in, and Dunmar is making his move. As if that wasn't enough, Margaret, someone from Dwight's past, reappears in a tense scene that sets the stage for even more complications. She delivers the bad news: Dwight's name is showing up in state financial audits, tied to the bourbon business. It's unclear whether it's a setup or a betrayal from within. But one thing is certain, the feds are coming for him. And they're coming hard, with the feds closing in, the crew falling apart, and his empire on the verge of collapse. Dwight faces a stark choice: continue the fight, or give in to the chaos that's swallowing him whole. His options are limited, and with each passing moment, it's clear that the cost of survival may be higher than he's willing to pay. The game is changing, and Dwight needs to decide if he's ready to play by a new set of rules or if he's already lost. As Dwight struggles to keep his empire from falling apart, the weight of his decisions becomes heavier with each passing moment. The law is tightening its grip, and the crew, once his loyal soldiers, is starting to show cracks that can no longer be ignored. Mitch, Cleo, Bigfoot, each one has their own demons to fight. And the betrayal from Vince? It's a blow that's cut deeper than Dwight ever imagined. Vince's quiet betrayal to Quiet Ray wasn't just a strategic move. It was a message. Vince wasn't just looking out for himself. He was looking to destroy everything Dwight had worked for. Quiet Ray's influence now looms larger than ever, and Dwight finds himself facing an uncomfortable truth: the world he's built may have never been meant for anyone but a gangster like Ray. The reality of the situation starts to sink in for Dwight. His attempts at going legitimate have failed spectacularly. The dream he once had of running a smooth, legal operation has turned to ash. His venture into the bourbon business, which was supposed to be his redemption, is now the very thing that is dragging him back into the criminal underworld. And the worst part? The people he trusted the most are the ones who have turned on him. Vince, who was once a key lieutenant, has effectively sealed his fate, handing over crucial information to Quiet Ray without a second thought. This wasn't just a slip-up. It was a calculated move, a preemptive strike to ensure that Dwight had no way out. Vince was done playing both sides. He had chosen a side, and it was no longer Dwight's. In the midst of all this chaos, Dwight finds himself grappling with his own sense of identity. He's always known how to play the game, how to navigate the murky waters of crime and business. But now, with his empire crumbling, the rules have changed. He's no longer the man he once was, the cold, calculated businessman trying to go straight. Dwight realizes that, in his quest for legitimacy, he's ignored the very thing that made him successful in the first place, his ruthlessness. The world he's living in now isn't one where you can negotiate or make deals. It's one where you fight or die. And Dwight's fight for survival is only beginning, but even as Dwight tries to regain control, the damage to his crew is already done. Bigfoot, once his most loyal enforcer, is no longer the same man. The guilt over the inspector's death is eating him alive. He can barely look Dwight in the eye, let alone follow his orders without hesitation. Mitch and Cleo, on the other hand, continue to argue, each trying to assert their own version of events. They argue over how things should have been handled, over what was right and wrong. But Dwight knows better than anyone that in their world, right and wrong don't exist. There's only survival, with the crew in disarray and the law closing in. Dwight knows that the time for half measures is over. The game is rigged and the only way out is through. But his enemies aren't just the feds anymore. Jeremiah Dunmar, once a rival, is now a direct threat. The attack on his distillery, Mitch, and Cleo's attempt at sending a message was supposed to be a show of force. But it was Dunmar who got the last laugh. Instead of launching an immediate counterattack, he played the long game. He leaked the surveillance footage of Mitch and Cleo to the authorities, knowing that it would create chaos within Dwight's crew. The footage was damning, a clear violation of the law, and within hours, Cleo had vanished without a trace. Mitch, too, was forced to go underground. The damage was done. Dwight was left to pick up the pieces, and even then, it was clear that there was no going back. Now, Dwight finds himself in a precarious position. His enemies are multiplying and the walls are closing in. The betrayal by Vince has thrown everything into disarray. The crew is fractured and the feds are closing in with renewed vigor. In the background, Quiet Ray is waiting for Dwight to make his move, knowing that Dwight's desperation could work to his advantage. Dwight's been avoiding Ray for months, but now, with no other options, he has no choice but to call him. When Dwight picks up the phone, the weight of the conversation hangs in the air. Ray's voice is cold, calculating, and distant. "Are you ready to play by my rules now?" Ray asks, a chilling reminder that Dwight is no longer in control. The coldness in Ray's voice is the final nail in Dwight's coffin the moment Dwight realizes that he's not just fighting for his empire, he's fighting for his survival. The call to quiet Ray signifies a turning point. Dwight can no longer avoid the truth. The man who he once tried to distance himself from is now his only hope for survival. The thought of going back to the old ways, of surrendering to the very thing he tried to escape, is unbearable. But Dwight doesn't have the luxury of choices anymore. His back is against the wall and it's either adapt or perish. The world of legitimate business is no longer an option. The world of crime, of survival, is all that remains. And Dwight knows that if he doesn't embrace the darkness inside him, he'll be consumed by it. But even as Dwight reaches out to quiet Ray, another unexpected force enters the picture. Margaret, a figure from Dwight's past, reappears, bringing with her devastating news. Dwight's name is now tied to illegal activities in state financial audits. The bourbon business, once a dream, is now a nightmare. Someone is funneling money through fake shell companies, and Dwight's name is attached to the paperwork. Whether it's a setup or a betrayal from within, the result is the same. The feds are closing in. Margaret doesn't mince words. The law is on their tail, and Dwight knows that if he doesn't act fast, he'll be caught in the crossfire. The past is catching up to him, and there's no escaping it. As Dwight grapples with these revelations, he's forced to confront the truth that he's spent years trying to avoid. He's no longer the man he used to be. The world of crime is no longer a choice. It's his only way forward. And while he may have once dreamt of a legitimate empire, Dwight's world is no longer built on dreams. It's built on survival. With every passing minute, Dwight realizes that the game has changed. He may have once been a king in the world of criminals, but now, he's just another player in a game he can't control. The fight for his survival is just beginning, and Dwight is prepared to do whatever it takes to come out on top. The walls are closing in, and Dwight feels the suffocating pressure with every breath he takes. What once seemed like a carefully orchestrated plan to build a legitimate empire is now a crumbling facade, held together by nothing more than desperation. The dream of turning a criminal legacy into a respected business is shattered, and Dwight is left picking up the pieces. But the reality is clear. The cost of survival has risen far beyond what he expected. The dream of legitimacy is dead, replaced by a brutal, unforgiving game of survival. And Dwight is no longer playing by the old rules. The cold, harsh truth is starting to set in. As Dwight continues to assess the wreckage of his empire, he realizes that Quiet Ray was right. Dwight thought he could walk away from the criminal underworld and build something legitimate. Something that would allow him to leave the violence and danger behind. But that wasn't in the cards. The game was never going to allow him to leave. Quiet Ray's cold voice on the other end of the phone was the final wake-up call. Dwight may have been trying to fight the inevitable, but now, with his empire in tatters and enemies closing in, he has no choice but to return to his roots. And Quiet Ray isn't giving him any room for hesitation. The gangster world doesn't wait for anyone, and Dwight has to make his choice now. What's left of Dwight's crew is a broken, fractured team, barely holding on by a thread. Bigfoot's guilt continues to tear him apart. The weight of the inspector's death is eating away at his very soul, and his once unshakable loyalty to Dwight is now questioned. The cracks in Bigfoot's resolve are growing wider by the day, and Dwight can see the internal struggle in his enforcer's eyes. It's only a matter of time before Bigfoot either makes a fatal mistake or walks away completely. Mitch and Cleo, once Dwight's most trusted allies, are locked in an endless cycle of blame and regret. Their inability to move past the fallout of the inspector's death and the attack on Dunmar's distillery is stalling any forward movement. Every time Dwight tries to rally the crew, the air is thick with doubt, and the arguments grow louder, more hostile. The situation has gone from bad to worse, and Dwight knows that time is running out. Every day that passes feels like another nail in his coffin. With the law closing in, his enemies circling, and his own crew starting to fracture, Dwight is faced with the ultimate test. He must either hold it together or watch everything he's built, everything he's sacrificed fall apart for good. The only option left is to fight back, to reclaim control before everything slips from his grasp. But doing so means taking on more than just the feds or the competition. It means taking on the very people he once trusted most. Dwight's instincts kick in, and he begins to make the moves that will secure his place in the game. He knows he can't count on Mitch, Cleo, or Bigfoot anymore. His crew is too divided, too vulnerable, and too unreliable. So Dwight starts making calculated plays on his own, cutting ties where necessary and tightening his grip on the few loyal soldiers left. Vince's betrayal has made it clear that Dwight cannot trust anyone fully, not even those closest to him. So he begins to isolate himself, playing the game with one simple rule: trust no one but himself. Meanwhile, Quiet Ray is playing his own game, waiting for Dwight to make his move. Ray has always been a master manipulator, and now, with Dwight cornered, he's biding his time. He knows that Dwight needs him, but Ray also knows that Dwight has always been reluctant to fully bow to anyone's will. So Ray pushes just enough to keep Dwight in line, but not enough to make him feel completely defeated. It's a delicate dance, and Dwight can feel the tension building. Ray's terms are non-negotiable, and Dwight is forced to swallow his pride and play by Ray's rules. But Dwight, ever the survivor, knows that this is just another part of the game, one he has no choice but to play for now. As the episode progresses, Dwight's plan starts to take shape. He begins to make moves that will keep the law at bay, even as he prepares for a more brutal confrontation with his rivals. The feds, while still a looming threat, are no longer his primary concern. It's the competition. The gangsters who want him out of the picture, who now pose the greatest danger. Dunmar, despite the damage caused by the attack on his distillery, is only becoming more dangerous by the day. Dwight knows that in this world, weakness is death, and even though his business is failing, his reputation is still something to be reckoned with. If Dwight can keep his enemies at bay, he might just be able to rebuild, even if it means going to war with Dunmar and the law once again. But just when Dwight thinks he's starting to regain control, a new twist threatens to completely derail everything. A new player enters the game, someone neither Dwight nor Quiet Ray anticipated. This player, someone with deep ties to the underworld and a personal vendetta against Dwight, is determined to take everything Dwight has built. They know all of Dwight's weaknesses, all of his secrets, and they're prepared to use them against him. The game has just changed once again, and Dwight is about to find out just how far he'll have to go to survive. As the tension continues to rise, Dwight's battle for survival becomes even more urgent. Every move he makes could be his last, and the line between friend and foe has never been blurrier. The stakes are higher than ever before, and the consequences of failure are more devastating than he ever imagined. The world Dwight once knew is gone, replaced by a brutal fight for power, survival, and control. And in this world, only the strongest, the most ruthless, can survive. Dwight's empire may be crumbling, but his spirit hasn't broken. He's ready to fight for his survival, even if it means tearing down everything he once built, because, in the end, it's not about the empire, it's about the man who built it. And Dwight is determined to remind the world that no one, not even Quiet Ray or Dunmar, can take him down without a fight. As the episode nears its climactic moments, Dwight is cornered from all angles. The calm, calculating figure he once was is now a man on the edge, pushed into survival mode by the relentless forces closing in around him. His empire, built on promises of legitimacy and power, is now a battlefield of betrayals, broken alliances, and looming threats. But in the midst of all the chaos, Dwight has one thing left to rely on: his instincts. The man who once ruled with a firm hand is now fighting a much darker battle, one where survival isn't guaranteed, and every move could be his last. The tension between Dwight and Quiet Ray intensifies as Dwight is forced to comply with Ray's rules. Ray, knowing the desperation in Dwight's voice, pushes even harder. Taking advantage of Dwight's vulnerable position, Dwight's internal conflict grows as he's forced to bow to Ray's demands. The cold realization hits Dwight that, despite all his attempts at redemption, the world he's trying to escape is the one that still holds the most power. The fight to build something legitimate has only been a distraction, a futile attempt to move away from the life he knows. Ray's influence over him is undeniable, and Dwight knows that any further resistance will only push him further into the darkness. So, with a sense of defeat that cuts deep, Dwight agrees to follow Ray's rules, at least for now. But this submission doesn't sit well with Dwight. The streets he once ruled are no longer his, and every decision feels like another step toward losing control. The desperation gnaws at him. But Dwight is far from finished. The fight is still alive in him. The key to survival now isn't about being the businessman he once dreamed of becoming. It's about adapting to the world of power and violence, where every decision could mean life or death. The world Dwight once sought to leave behind is now the one he must embrace if he wants to survive. As Dwight's grip on his empire continues to slip, Vince's betrayal still burns fresh in his mind. Vince, who was once a trusted ally, is now a traitor whose actions have irreparably damaged Dwight's crew. But as Dwight assesses the damage, he realizes that he can't afford to dwell on what's been lost. He must find a way forward, even if that means sacrificing everything he thought he knew about loyalty and trust. His past mistakes have caught up with him, and it's clear now that trust is a commodity Dwight can no longer afford. The only person Dwight can trust is himself. Meanwhile, the threat from Dunmar continues to loom large. Dwight's attempt to send a message to Dunmar by targeting his distillery has backfired spectacularly. Dunmar, ever the strategist, has used the attack to his advantage. Instead of retaliating in force, he leaks the footage of Mitch and Cleo's break-in to the authorities. The fallout is swift and brutal. Cleo disappears without a trace, and Mitch is forced to go into hiding. The damage to Dwight's crew is severe, and once again, Dwight is left holding the pieces. His enemies have learned from the past. They're not just playing the same game. They're playing a much smarter, far more dangerous version of it. But just when Dwight thinks he's hit rock bottom, an even more dangerous threat emerges from his past. Margaret's reappearance serves as a brutal reminder of everything Dwight has tried to outrun. Her warning about the state financial audits and the money laundering operation tied to the bourbon business is the final straw. It's clear that someone is setting him up, and whether it's a rival or a betrayal from within, Dwight's world is crumbling faster than he can keep up with. The feds are closing in, and the money trail leads directly back to him. Dwight knows that if he doesn't act fast, the authorities will have everything they need to take him down once and for all. In this final stretch, Dwight finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place. He can't outrun the law, and he can't outwit the people trying to destroy him. His empire is in ruins, and his crew is no longer a force to be reckoned with. Vince's betrayal, Quiet Ray's demands, the relentless pressure from Dunmar, it all converges on Dwight, and he has no choice but to fight back. The battle for survival has reached its peak, and Dwight knows that the only way out is through. But even as Dwight prepares to make his next move, the true cost of this war becomes painfully clear. There's no turning back now. The once hopeful vision of a legitimate empire is gone. What remains is a battle for control, a fight to hold on to whatever Dwight can salvage from the wreckage. His name is tied to a web of crime, betrayal, and violence, and there's no way to clean it up. Every choice Dwight makes now is one of survival, and the people who stand in his way will stop at nothing to see him fall. In the final moments of the episode, Dwight makes the hardest choice of all. The empire he once dreamed of is gone. The life he tried to build is shattered, and the cost of survival is higher than he ever imagined. But Dwight, ever the survivor, is prepared to do whatever it takes to stay on top. The game is far from over, and in Dwight's mind, there's always a way to turn the tables, even if it means embracing the very darkness he tried so hard to escape. The question remains, how much of himself will Dwight have to lose to win this war? The stakes have never been higher, and Dwight knows that, in the end, it's not just about who wins. It's about who survives, and in a world as ruthless as this, survival is the only thing that matters.